2020 is almost at an end, so it's time for another summary of my favorite movies of the year. Before we get to the list itself, a couple of things I want to point out. Obviously, 2020 has been a horrible year for pretty much all of us because of the COVID pandemic. The movie industry was hit especially hard. We all know that. There's really no point in me taking 15 minutes to talk about it. What matters is this. Even with all that's happened, there was still plenty of really good cinema to watch. Movie theaters were still open for parts of the year in various countries, and even taking them aside, a lot of great stuff has been released online on one of the many streaming platforms. In fact, my shortlist that I came up with to consider for this list had 29 positions on it initially. I also took a look at my personal stats out of curiosity, and in 2020, in terms of newly released films, I only saw 7 less than in 2019. It was 117 last year, 110 this time around. What did change massively was the proportion between movies I've seen at the movie theater and at home. In 2019, 78% of all the movies that I watched, the new ones, were at movie theaters, whereas 22% at home. In 2020, that changed. In theaters, 37%, at home 63%. That's a massive shift. Is it good or is it bad? You can argue. I personally still prefer the theater experience every single time. But hey, if you can't do it, I'll take home releases as well. The important thing is to have great art to consume. In terms of the list, same rules as the last time. I went by the Polish release dates, so some of the movies you'll see here may have come out in 2019 in other countries, such as US or UK, but I stick to what was possible to view in my country in order to make it clearer and more consistent. Also, similarly to last year, I really didn't have the heart to cut off the list at just 10 movies, because I think a few more of them deserve to be mentioned and remembered, so the list this time around has 15 positions. Also, important distinction, this isn't the list of the best movies that came out, but rather my favorite ones. I'll try to briefly explain the reasons for the selection as we go through each one of them. So without further ado, enjoy the list of my top 10 favorite movies of 2020.
It's gonna be a beautiful wedding.
Here you are, standing on the precipice of something so much bigger than anyone here. But always remember, you are not alone.
I don't think that we met. I'm Sarah.
Niles.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice.
Run, rabbit, run!
Niles?
Don't come in here!
What
It's gonna be a beautiful wedding.
Good day so far? Today, tomorrow, it's all the same.
You! What is going on? Hey, get out of the water!
Guess you followed me. It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
That I might have heard about.
Yeah.
At number 15, Palm Springs. I went into this one with extremely low expectations. It seemed like a dumb, silly comedy on the surface. Surprisingly, it turned out to be quite intelligent, well-crafted, very funny, had amazing pair of lead characters with fantastic chemistry between them. And also, most importantly, it was really timely. By exploring being stuck in a time loop and getting bored and drunk with no escape, it managed to capture the mood that most of us went through with the lockdowns and being stuck at home. And it was a great way to help cope with the situation.
Number, please.
Hello? Is this Wayne? Large object holding over my land like a tornado.
This is WOTW Radio in Cayuga, New Mexico, and this is the news for the hour.
Now, what would you like to tell us about yourself?
I don't know.
Cool, aren't you like some big science girl? Tell me about science.
Everett, it's Faye. The sound came through the board and interrupted your radio show.
What does it sound like?
At number 14, The Vast of Night. An impressive exercise in making an incredibly engaging film with a microscopic budget. and yet making it seem like it was simultaneously a more expensive production because of the production value of it, and a minimalistic radio play somehow transformed into a movie. It takes inspiration from the radio plays by Orson Welles and other early works in the sci-fi genre to create something truly unique. It's incredible at creating tension with very few tools, has a splendid script, cinematography, and especially sound design. For me, one of the bigger surprises of the year, because this one came out of nowhere and blew me away.
Whether I turn out to be the hero of my own story, or whether that station will be held by anybody else, these moments must show. My boyhood days seem now like a scarcely believable fiction.
London is full of wonders and wickedness. And it's ours, David, to go wherever we choose. Well, I'm not down there. Creditors make that road impossible. 2 tailors and a most unreasonable muffin man. Copperfield!
Your mama is ill.
How ill is she?
Very ill.
Very ill.
Very ill.
Very ill?
Dangerously ill.
She's dead.
We're very sorry.
I'm David Copperfield. I'm your nephew. You're the only family I have.
What do we do with him?
If I were you, I'd wash him.
Oh, donkeys! This is a donkey-free zone! Move it!
You're a remarkable woman. Very kind.
At number 13, The Personal History of David Copperfield. Somehow, despite the amazing cast and director, I wasn't expecting much from the film. But the film didn't care. It came in with lively, infectious energy and humor and told a wonderful adventure story of overcoming life hurdles and becoming someone. Dev Patel has unbelievable charisma in this film, and he's the fundamental reason behind its success, which is even more impressive when you consider all of the supporting cast that he's surrounded with. And so when you add all those people up, the result is this colorful, pleasant film full of joy, charisma, little bits of tragedy, and a whole lot of humor. It's a world you want to be in, a film you want to spend time with. Marvelous.
Is this a style?
I was going for rat's tails.
You look like a different person. What have you done with my daughter?
I killed her.
Oh, my God.
What are you doing here?
What are you doing here?
You make a habit of befriending girls that are significantly younger than yourself.
Oh my God!
Mila's obsessed with that boy.
She's a smart girl.
Mila, that boy has problems.
So do I! What are you looking at? Piss off.
Oh, darling.
I lost my hair.
It looks cool. It's like way better than the one that I gave you.
Not.
At number 12, Babyteeth. Eliza Scanlon gives a powerhouse performance in a film filled with powerhouse performances. In a series of short vignettes, we observe the story of a relationship forming between a girl with cancer and a boy that's a troublemaker. A relationship that seems doomed to lead only to tragedy, and yet becomes one of the only sources of happiness between other bigger life tragedies. It's a fantastic exploration of joy and sorrow, and especially of finding little nuggets of the former in a situation drenched in the latter. Heartbreaking and beautiful.
I made a crazy risk, a gamble, and it's about to pay off. So I want the Celtics to cover. I want the Celtics halftime. I want Garnett points and rebounds. What do you know? I don't know. I just know.
Well, I'll tell you what I know. That's the dumbest fucking bet I ever heard of.
I disagree. I disagree, Gary.
What is that?
I started it.
Are you serious?
You're taking my money all over town, placing bets.
I'm having very serious second thoughts.
Are you serious right now?
I know I fucked up.
Howard, where's the money right now?
Howard, got my money?
Howard! Is it too late? I'm done. It means nothing. It meant nothing. Please. Give me another shot.
At number 11, Uncut Gems. Someone asks me what genre this film is in. I answer anxiety. Anxiety is the genre. It's an incredibly tiring film to watch, a real mental grinder, but it's very much deliberate and intentional. It also happens to be one of the most impressive performances in a while, with Adam Sandler, of all people, disappearing into the role of this slimy, lying, and gambling guy who is always chasing the next high, always chasing the next opportunity to get rich, always looking for the next shortcut and getting himself in trouble in the process. The entire movie is incredible in the way it uses overlapping dialogue and people shouting over one another and frantic pace to completely overwhelm the audience and build a sense of impending doom. It's not a pleasant film, it's not an easy film, but at what it's doing, it is fantastic.
I'm working on a novel. It is a story of my life and my sister's.
Make it short and spicy. And if the main character is a girl, make sure she's married by the end.
Ow, Joe!
I want to be an artist in Rome and be the best painter in the world. That's what you want too, isn't it, Joe? To be a famous writer? Yes, but it sounds so crass when she says it. My girls have a way of getting into mischief.
Well, so do I. This is Meg, Amy, Beth, and Joe.
I intend to make my own way in the world.
No one makes their own way, least of all a woman. You'll need to marry well.
But you are not married, aren't you?
Well, that's because I'm rich.
At number 10, Little Women. Yet another adaptation of a classic book, yet again with a stellar cast, but I feel like the deciding factor this time around was Greta Gerwig in the director chair. Her vision of the film makes it stand out from the other adaptations, leaving them far behind. The idea to merge the two timelines and flash back and forth between them whilst using different color palettes to instantly identify in a visual sense which is which was a brilliant idea that really improved the flow of an already well-written story. And as I mentioned, we have a really splendid group of actors and actresses in here, with the standout for me being Saoirse Ronan, who role after role, film after film, continues to be absolutely excellent. She's already become one of my favorite actresses of her generation, even before Little Women, but this movie just cemented that opinion even further. Wonderful film.
El hoyo. Sí, el hoyo.
¿Y usted sabe en qué consiste esto del hoyo?
Obvio. Comer
¿Qué vamos a comer?
lo que le sobra a los de arriba.
Es asqueroso. ¿Hay mucha más gente abajo?
Dentro de poco habrá menos.
At number 9, The Platform. Another surprise that came out of nowhere and blew me away. Another seemingly simple movie that's actually very rich in what it's doing. The entire movie is basically an allegory for greed and material disproportion in modern societies. It explores the human nature in regards to resources and wealth in a way that is equally simple and brilliant. And what's even more impressive, out of the simple philosophical concept, dressed in a simple sci-fi dystopian setting. So you've got a tower with a single platform filled with food once at the top, sliding down the floors with enough to satisfy everyone if everyone only took what they needed. And out of this simple premise, a whole movie is made and it never feels stretched out. As time goes on, it proves it still has more and more to say, new things to explore still. Some people complained about the ending being a bit wonky, but it worked for me, and even without it, the platform gave me a lot to think about.
I teach middle school band. Cut it, go for it! Today started out as the best day of my life.
Back here tonight, first show's at 7.
Yes! Woohoo! You know what that's gonna say? Joe Gardner. I did it, I got the gig.
Must have been sudden for you.
What? Oh my goodness, oh my goodness! Help! I'm not done! Oh my goodness!
No, it's the great before. This is where new souls get their personalities, quirks, and interests before they go to Earth.
Meet 22.
I don't want to go to Earth.
Stop fighting this.
I don't want to. Okay, look, I already know everything about Earth, and I don't want anything to do with it.
You're missing out on the joys of life.
At number 8, Soul. The latest entry on the list, the new film from Pixar, impressed me with how poignant it is and how timely it was with the themes it explored. By pondering on the nature of happiness and suggesting that instead of finding it in grand achievements, we should instead cherish the little moments in life. It is also the most adult of all the Pixar films. I don't think it's going to be as appreciated by children, but hey, I'm an adult, so I loved it. It has great underlying philosophy behind top-notch animation, and this time around Pixar impresses in not one but two different styles. One is the abstract, minimalistic soul world. The other is a beautiful, at times photorealistic tribute to New York in autumn. And trust me, with its central message, this is the movie we all needed, especially in 2020.
To do what I do, I need some idea of the threat we face.
As I understand it, we're trying to prevent World War III.
Nuclear holocaust.
No. Something worse.
All I have for you is a word.
Tenet. It'll open the right doors, some of the wrong ones too.
You have to start looking at the world in a new way.
Don't try to understand it. Feel it.
At number 7, Tenet. Probably the most hyped movie of the year, it performed disappointingly at the box office, which is not a surprise if you consider the pandemic, but was also pretty wildly criticized, certainly more so than any other Nolan film in my memory. People said that the plot is too convoluted and complicated, that it's difficult to follow, the set pieces are too complex, the story itself is too cold and impersonal, some of the dialogue weak or on the nose. Now, I agree with many of those criticisms, and the more I thought about the film afterward, the more I noticed its flaws. But I will say this, when I walked out of the IMAX movie theater, I was pumped. I had a wide grin on my face, I couldn't stop thinking or talking about the film for a good while. I was very satisfied, because as flawed as it is as a film, there's one thing that Tenet undeniably excels at, and that's being a huge, impressive spectacle. For me, that alone was enough to put the movie on the list, because it gave me by far the best and most exciting cinematic experience of the entire year.
I never knew why Daddy Mac was so mean to Uncle Frank. He was the kind of person I wanted to be. Smart and funny and considerate.
You're gonna be the person you decide to be, or you're gonna be the person everyone else tells you are. You get to choose.
Can I come visit you sometime? Hi, I'm Frank Smith.
Oh my God, Beth, nice meeting you. Frank, tell me you were coming.
That's because he doesn't know.
He doesn't know. Oh, well, okay, this is gonna be very exciting.
How do you know Uncle Frank?
He's my roommate.
Wally and I lived together, we have for 10 years.
Never known anybody who was gay before.
Of course you have. Choir director of church.
Mr. Jurgensen? But he's so...
What?
religious.
Ah! Hey, Mom. How?
Heart attack just out of nowhere, getting into the car.
You need me for this. You know you do.
No, Wally, you're not coming.
We can take turns driving.
Are you the stupidest man alive?
Obviously, look who I'm with.
At number 6, Uncle Frank. Small, unassuming film that floored me, emotionally speaking. It has 3 wonderful performances at its core that are very good individually, but also have an incredible chemistry and warmth between them. So much so that they create more than the sum of its parts. It's a film that has a lot of sorrow and baggage and tragedy at its heart, but one of its themes is dealing with all of that, and that's done with a lot of humor, compassion, and again, warmth. I loved being on a road trip with this trio of lovable characters. I really loved spending time with them. I laughed with them, I cried with them, my heart was completely in it, and that to me is the best sign of great art.
Dear God, your presence graces the air, and soon everyone will see.
Hi, are you Maud?
Yes, hi. It takes nothing special to mop up after the dying.
You're prettier than the last one.
But to save a soul, that's quite something. Bless Amanda's body and bless her mind, which is shrouded in darkness.
When you pray, do you get a response?
Oh, it's like he's physically in me. It's how he guides me.
My little savior.
At number 5, Saint Maud. Incredible, let me repeat that, incredible horror done with so much subtlety that and restraint that actually when you think about it, the movie is more of a drama and character study for most of its runtime, and only really has 3 scenes which can be described as pure horror. But they're more than enough. Even thinking about those individual moments now, I shiver a little, and I remember being so shaken by the ending that I needed a minute or two to compose myself before getting out of the movie theater. It has a dense and thick atmosphere. It's unsettling, but not consistently scary. And probably the most terrifying thing about it is not any of the straight horror stuff that it does, but the thing that you really believe someone like Maud, played brilliantly by Morfydd Clark, could exist. Fantastic cinema.
C'est notre vie. Toi, tu débarques, nous, ça fait 10 ans qu'on est là. On est les seuls à se faire respecter.
Eh les gars, soleil!
De quel respect tu me parles? Les gens d'ici, ils ont peur de vous, c'est tout.
C'est quoi l'histoire? Quand t'as volé un lion?
Ouais.
Mets la pression sur les petits, faut qu'on retrouve le lion.
Arrête-toi, là! Bouge pas, arrête-toi!
Vous n'éviterez pas la colère et les cris.
La galère, c'est qu'il y a un drone qui nous a filmés.
Qu'est-ce que tu me parles de gérer un drone, là? Il y a un gamin inconscient, là!
Je sais qu'on peut faire tomber la BAC avec cette vidéo si on veut.
C'est quoi votre problème, à vous? C'est moi, la loi!
Donc t'es en train de m'expliquer quoi, là? C'est un accident?
At number 4, Les Miserables, French crime drama, not to be confused with the famous musical. This one takes place in the modern day and is a supernaturalistic exploration of violence between police and gangs, or in the wider sense, people living in impoverished communities. It takes a long, hard look at how these situations develop and tries to figure out which came first. Is the police abusing its power because they're being provoked by the gangs? Or are the gangs reacting to the way that they're being systematically disenfranchised and put to the side? And maybe even more importantly, can this cycle of hatred and violence be stopped? Or is it a spiral that will continue on and become worse and worse? Out of all the movies this year, this is probably the one that felt least like a film and most like watching real life unfold itself in front of the camera. Incredibly tense and gripping, very realistic and masterfully crafted.
The $10 founding father without a father got a lot farther by working a lot harder, by being a lot smarter, by being a self-starter. To your union and the hope that you provide. May you always be satisfied.
At number 3, Hamilton. Now, you can argue, is it a film, is it not? IMDb classifies it as a theatrical film, so that's how I choose to treat it as well. And really, it would even be worth it to bend the rules for this one because it is so wonderfully perfect. I went to it blind, somehow not knowing what Hamilton was even about, and was faced with a 2.5-hour musical about the early days of the USA, done with not one bit of dialogue that isn't a song, And those songs are primarily inspired by hip-hop, rap, R&B, and all of the adjacent genres, and performed almost exclusively by people of color. And I loved every minute of it. It has incredible energy, swagger, flair. The songs are catchy and at the same time really impressively informative. The story is great, so are the performances. There's humor and joy and drama and tragedy. It is a complete package. In fact, it is the only 10 out of 10 on my list this year. Missing it now that it's available in such a good quality online on Disney Plus is a sin.
You have a brother in the 2nd Battalion.
Yes, sir.
They're walking into a trap. Your orders are to deliver a message, calling off tomorrow morning's attack. If you fail, it will be a massacre.
Let's talk about this for a minute.
Why?
We've got orders to cross here.
That is the German front line.
If we're not clever about this, no one will get to your brother. I will.
At number 2, 1917, the most technically impressive movie this year, and yes, I am including Tenet in that comparison. Initially, it looked like a gimmick, shooting a film in a way that makes it look like a single, unbroken shot throughout the entire runtime, with one exception. Interesting idea, but could it really work? Boy, oh boy, it did. Roger Deakins proves he is probably the best cinematographer working right now, because the film is absolutely stunning in terms of the visuals. And what's most important, the one-shot thing does not detract from the story, it enhances it. Because the story itself is pretty engaging, carried mostly by the performance of George Mackay, with a lot of familiar faces popping up here and there as sort of checkpoints on the way that the protagonists are traversing. It's also incredible to me how many different looking locations are in the film, considering the one-shot thing, and the fact that it basically should all be covered within a few kilometers of land. Also, that sequence in the final act with the ruined town at night, that will remain lodged in my memory for a long time as one of the most beautiful, stunning, jaw-dropping scenes I've seen. I'm really surprised this film hasn't been talked about more, because to me, it is an instant classic that deserves to be up there with the more movie titans such as Saving Private Ryan.
Abadan comes to. When I was your age, I had an imaginary friend. Got me in so much trouble.
Kids, it's time to burn some books!
You're growing up too fast. 10-year-olds shouldn't be celebrating war and talking politics.
Heil Hitler. I wish more of our young boys had your blind fanaticism.
Did you know Jews can read each other's minds? But how would you know if you saw one? They could look just like us. Hi. You know what I am? Say it. A Jew. Gesundheit.
Jojo Rabbit was one of the first movies I've seen this year, and it ended up being my favorite. If I still had any doubts whatsoever about Taika Waititi as a writer, as a director, they're gone now. Whatever the man touches turns into gold, and this one was on paper the most risky project of them all, as it could have been taken as insensitive or improper in the way it brings slapstick comedy into World War II and Nazi Germany. Thankfully, people have appreciated the wacky satire of showing Nazis as incompetent, stupid, absurd losers, with Hitler himself being, well, imaginary version of Hitler, being played by Waititi himself, a Maori Jew, as this cherry on top of the pile of irony. The writing, cinematography, performances, and soundtrack are all amazing, but to me, the key thing is how the movie worked for me on an emotional level. I laughed when it wanted me to laugh. I was shocked when it wanted to shock me. I cried when it wanted me to cry. I was on board the whole time. And I loved the humor and the tragedy pretty much equally. It's impressive how many different things I felt while watching a movie that initially just seemed like an over-the-top comedy, but proved to be so much more than that. And rightfully so, it is my favorite movie of 2020.
I don't think I can do this.
Was?
Of course you can.